welcome back to my YouTube channel. So I wanted to do a little chit chat on tracking macros. If you guys haven't been following me on Instagram or just my social media in general, you would know I've been talking a lot about flexible dieting and tracking macros. Now, as an online coach and someone who is a competitor myself, I utilize tracking macros, and tracking macros can work for a variety of people. It's not only for bikini competitors, it's not only for lifestyle clients. Anybody can track their macros regardless of your diet restrictions too. So if you're someone who has a vegetarian preference or a vegan preference or even keto, paleo, this is still a way that you can go about being more accountable in your diet and just track macros. It doesn't matter what foods you can and can't have, just due to your diet restrictions. You can implement tracking macros, and that's going to help you see the visuals, see the numbers, hold you a little bit more accountable. And then I know for myself, as a science-based person, I really like data. So that's why I really enjoy tracking macros. It allows for me to see the data, it allows for me to see the trends each week, and it also just allows for me to see what foods work best for my body. So we're going to be chatting a little bit more about this topic, and I'm going to be covering the basics for beginners and why you might want to do this. So I want to let you guys know up front, before you start watching this video, make sure you give it a like and also hit subscribe. Make sure you guys also hit the post notifications bell, because I will be posting more. I am back on my YouTube channel game. Guys, it's been a long time, like 10 years on YouTube, but we back. Also guys, if during this talk you are still confused on what macros are, make sure you shoot me an email at Nicole Ferrier Fitness, and I will gladly send you over my free macro ebook so you can get a better understanding of what macros are and how you can implement them into your lifestyle. Okay, so tracking macros. First, before we even talk about macros, we need to know what the heck a macro is. No, it's not an alien. No, it's not the end-all be-all of food, but macronutrients are what makes up calories. So I wanted to do a little breakdown for you guys on my good old dry erase board on what macros are, because during my lives it flip-flops it. So let's talk a little bit about the values of macros. So there are three main macro groups when tracking macros. Macros are your protein, carbs, and fat grams, and you can see that on a nutrition label. So if you were to flip over a nutrition label, you would see total fat for the day, carbohydrates, and then the protein. So those three variables in a nutrition label, that's what you're going to be tracking when tracking macros. Don't look at the sodium or the sugar or the vitamins and minerals. Those are called micronutrients, and they are important, don't get me wrong, but that's not necessarily what you're going to be focusing on when you're starting with tracking macros. That's a more advanced thing that we'd be paying attention to. As you get a little bit more comfortable to tracking, we can utilize variables like watching sodium, watching sugar, as you get better at tracking the three main staples. So I will also say, macros are the only thing that make up calories, versus micronutrients do not make up calories. So you can have a lot of sodium in a meal. Salt doesn't add calories to a meal, it's a spice. And most spices, unless they have like a carbohydrate base in them, aren't going to add calories. So like cinnamon doesn't have calories in it, pepper doesn't have calories in it. So those are some examples of like spices that don't have calories, but they also provide some nutrients through their micronutrients, which is vitamins and minerals. Okay, so let's talk about the totals for the foods. I will say that carbohydrates and protein are very similar. So carbohydrates are 4 calories per 1 gram. Protein yields to 4 calories per 1 gram of protein. And then fat is the highest calorie one, and that is 9 calories per 1 gram of fat. Now, you guys might be thinking, let's scoot that over. You guys might be thinking, okay, but how do I utilize that in a nutrition label? We're gonna be chit-chatting about that in just a second, but I wanted to go over per grams. So a lot of times when you're looking at a nutrition label, you'll be like, well, that seems like a lot of carbohydrates, and it will say like 10 grams of carbs. That's only 40 calories of that food coming from carbohydrates. All of these macros, the 3 macros, it's a combination of the 3 that equals your total calories. So let's talk a little bit about. I do apologize because you can definitely see my ring light in this, but it is a little bit cloudy here in Ohio. But guys, so here are the totals for your food. You have your carbs, proteins, and fats. Let's say we're looking at a granola bar, and these are the total macros for that granola bar. In this granola bar, you have 20 grams of carbohydrates, 15 grams of protein, and 5 grams of fat. These would be the grams that you would see on the nutrition label. So then you're going to want to multiply that by the values, and that's going to give you the total calories per each macro group. So per carbs, you're getting 80 calories of energy from that. Per protein, you're getting 60 calories of energy from protein and 45 calories of energy from fat. You're going to add all of those together, and that's what gives you the total calories for the food. Now, before you guys run on off, it is not that complicated when it comes to tracking macros. We actually have so many tools for us to use to track macros and to help hold us accountable. You will not need to pull out a calculator at the grocery store or whenever you're consuming your favorite foods. But what you will have to use is a tracking app. So I always recommend using MyFitnessPal. That's what I personally like to use. That's what I recommend for my clients to use, and it's very user-friendly. You know, when you're at the grocery store and you're scanning out foods and it goes beep, 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 MyFitnessPal allows for you to do the same thing. So you can have the barcode of your food, scan the food barcode, and all of the nutritionals for that food will pop up on the app. All you have to do after you scan the food is just hit the check mark and log for the day. What's also great about MyFitnessPal is it has a great algorithm of knowing the foods that you like. So if you are one of those people that eats the same breakfast every single day, MyFitnessPal is going to track that every single day. MyFitnessPal has gotten so good that it's memorized my Chipotle orders, so we're practically dating. But for real, guys, I can already go into MyFitnessPal, look up Chipotle, and it will actually have all the servings that I get for my Chipotle already portioned out and have like the foods of recommended popping up. So, guys, I highly recommend that you just download MyFitnessPal, play around with the app. It is a free app. I'm by no means affiliated with them, but I've been using them for years, and that's what my clients use, and they love it. So one other thing you're going to need if you're wanting to track macros is a food scale. Now, a digital food scale is going to be the best and most accurate for this, and I just get my food scale off of Amazon. I believe it's called the Orzani scale. I will try to link it down below in this video, but I really recommend that you use a food scale at least for 1 month straight of macro tracking. That's going to allow for you guys to see proper portion sizes, and trust me guys, if you've never weighed out peanut butter before, you'd be shook on how little that is for 2 tablespoons. Tracking macros is great with using the scale too, because it just allows for you to have a lot of like eye-opening moments. You get to see what 3 ounces of chicken is. You get to see the values correlated with that food. You get to see how much carbohydrates is in the bread you like, or how many carbohydrates is in the rice portions that you normally have. It's just a great eye-opener and allows for you to have a little bit more self-awareness in your food choices. Now, do I think you need to use a food scale for the rest of your life, and do I think that you need to take it to restaurants with you? No, but I think that it's a great tool for learning portion sizes in the beginning. Now, when you are a little bit more advanced, I recommend you switching to just a hand portion size visual, and you can actually use your hand to see portion sizes when you are estimating macros and not being as accurate with a food scale. The other thing I want to mention with tracking macros is you can actually track it at restaurants. So if you're going to Chipotle, if you're going to McDonald's, if you're going to BJ's Brewhouse, most restaurants actually already have the macronutrients and nutritionals in MyFitnessPal. So that's also why I love that app so much. So whenever you're traveling, do not fear. You can simply scan the label, or you can just type in the actual restaurant name, and the nutritional should pop up for the food. So whenever I'm tracking at a restaurant, I like to kind of pre-look over the menu before I go there, and that way I can get an idea of the foods that are going to be there and get an idea of what sounds good for, you know, eating, because I like to eat, and I'm a little nosy on what's on the menu. I want choices. I want options. I don't want to get the menu and get overwhelmed. And plus, I'm so indecisive. So that's why I really like to look over the menu. I will actually type in the foods from the menu on MyFitnessPal, look at the nutritionals, and see what will fit my macros for the day. Now, when it comes to tracking, there's also another type of method when approaching your day. Some people like to track their macros the day prior, so the night before they will put in their macros and put in the foods to hit their macros for the day. Now, I will also say that you don't have to do that, and you can track your macros throughout the day as you're eating, so you can kind of log it throughout the day versus, you know, already having a set meal plan already in place because you pre-tracked the day prior. But that's a more advanced method. So for me, I've been tracking macros for years, and I kind of can go about my day with tracking and still hit my macros spot on. However, if you're new to it, I recommend tracking the night prior. I recommend going into the grocery store and really taking some time to look over the foods that you love and are already staples in your diet and check out the nutritionals on them. And I also just recommend that you play around on MyFitnessPal app and see what foods would help you hit your macro goals. Now, for me and my clients, I actually provide a grocery list for them, which separates it out from protein, carbs, and fats, so they can get an idea of food recommendations for each one of those categories. But you can do that for yourself as well, or if you're needing some recommendations of a split breakdown of protein, carbs, and fat foods, feel free to contact me at Nicole at NicoleFerrierFitness.com. I always mess up. Another thing when it comes to tracking macros is your approach of how you're looking at it. So don't necessarily look at foods as good and bad. I always recommend macro trackers to have an 80-20 approach, while if you're in prep, you're going to have to be a little bit more structured, like a 90-10 approach. 80% of your food's coming from whole sources versus 20% more processed and fun sources of food. It's about balance, guys. It's not about good and bad foods. Now, when you're tracking your macros too, I recommend that you look at your macros like a budget, and you don't look at it like, I can't have this certain food or I can't have that food. You can literally have any food that you want, and it's just based off of your macro budget. Now, you're going to get your set macros, your set protein grams to hit per day, set carb grams to hit per day, and set fat grams to hit per day based off of just your lifestyle, your training, your diet history, or you can simply just Google macro tracking calculators, which I'm not gonna lie, those trackers are not that accurate, but if you can't invest in a coach, then that might be your best bet for now. But if you do hire a coach, they will be able to calculate your macros for you and get a better estimate that fits your life and your routine. However, I highly recommend that you invest in a coach, because that way you're going to have someone to overlook your macros, make sure that you are having the right portions for your lifestyle, your training, your passive dieting, your height and weight. These are all things that you need to take into account when calculating macros, and that's something that a calculator can't necessarily do for you. But once you get your macros handed to you, look at it like a budget. Do I want to spend my 120 grams of protein on some chicken today? Do I want to spend it on some deli turkey today? Do I want to spend my carbohydrate grams on some potato today, or some rice today, or some Halo Top today? That's how I recommend that you look at your macros. It's just like a budget. And you get your budget from your coach or from a calculator that you may find online to track your macros. There's other variables too when it comes to tracking. You're going to want to have some fiber goals as well, and also alcohol does have macros too, but that's another chit chat for another day. But guys, I hope that this introduction to tracking macros was helpful for you and brought you a little bit more clarity when it comes to tracking. It doesn't have to be that confusing, and like I said, if you want clarity when it comes to tracking, make sure you contact me and I will gladly send you over that free ebook. Guys, if you're not following me on Instagram, I recommend that you give your girl a follow at Nicole Ferrier Fitness. And if you're needing more help with your training and nutrition, I would gladly love to help you in your journey. And you can apply for my coaching through my website, www.NicoleFerrierFitness.com. Alright guys, so I hope that you have a great day, happy lifting, and happy tracking.